Okay, everybody, good morning. Hope you're well. Happy Tuesday. Happy belated St. Patrick's for those that celebrated. Not as much, not as big celebrations here in Europe as they have in the old US, but if you did celebrate, I hope it was a good one. Gonna do a quick update on some macro things here. Obviously, with my eye on Ukraine and the supposed ceasefire peace deal that Trump is working for. Before I talk about that, I just want to show some broad pictures, charts again on Russia. Whoops, that's not right. It's got to be there. It's through my StreamYard you just saw. The old infinite window. Or did I share it? Did I share it? Hold on. I think I did. Sorry. Yeah, I guess I did. Let me take it back. Sorry. Cobweb's still going for me today. Got to get my streaming set up a little bit better. All right. So I just tweeted this recently. Trump is continuing to play to Putin's good side and making Ukraine weak in suing for peace. It is a strategy. I would argue that it's not the best strategy for peace in the region, but it is a strategy. Put together a little simple chart here. This is GDP per capita. This is economic output. That means all new goods and services that were sold throughout the year in any country. You have to go to both World Bank and IMF for this because of political reasons. Some don't have Taiwan, some do, different agencies. And we got Monaco way up there, $250,000 per capita. Okay, you can kind of think of it like a general income. Of course, it's a target for you. If you live in that country, probably things are going to be more expensive, and you want to make sure you at least make that much if you live in that country, just roughly. All right, so we go all the way down the list here. See this in red. What's that? It's Russia. Number 75. All right. Second greatest army in the world. Second greatest army in Ukraine. Number 75 GDP per capita, and it's 13,720. 13,720. These are 2023 numbers. World Bank hasn't updated for 2024, though IMF has, but nonetheless, you're going to get the idea. It's only 3 slots ahead of the world average. Okay. Trump says he wants them back in the G7, or that would be the G8 if Russia is in. 3 slots ahead of the world average GDP per capita. What's this all the way down here? Ranked 121 in 2023, Ukraine. $5,241 per capita in 2023. The war was on. As we know, Russia, after 3 years, has continued to not be able to control any of the 4 sovereign oblasts that it says that it controls and are part of Russia. It doesn't control them. This is going to be part of Trump's asset swap, as he is calling it, for peace with Ukraine. Remember, the Ukrainians will never recognize this as Russian territory. It will be disputed territory always. From the perspective of Ukraine, the only oblast that they actually control is Crimea, which they have done with little green men. Putin lied and said he did not do it, but of course he did, in 2014. So the second greatest army in the world. Think about all of the fools in 2022, February. The Scott Ritters, the Scott Hortons. A lot of people that said either Russia was not going to invade, or if they did invade, prepare for a Sputnik moment. That was Clint Ehrlich, I believe his name was. I haven't tracked him in a while. Basically, a lot of Vatniks, Russian sympathizers who, again, just wondering for this Sputnik moment for Putin, which doesn't have to come at the hands of Ukrainian genocide and the mercy of Donald Trump. Okay, so remember, there are a lot of things that Donald Trump is supposedly going to try to agree upon with Vladimir Putin. There are still 20,000, and this is not a new figure, 20,000 kidnapped children for years now in Russia. Second greatest army in the world, 75th largest economy in the world per capita. Never forget, 1 in 5 Russians doesn't have a toilet. When they invaded Ukraine, they tried to steal toilets, washing machines, dishwashers. This is Russia, second greatest army in the world. Still something to fear, though, okay? As you know, live in the Baltics, Eastern Europe. Still something to fear, and that can be confusing. I think not for our European friends here, but for American listeners, that can be confusing. I'll address that as well in this video. But just for a second here, let's go back to some other charts. Let's analyze this now a little bit more in the context of NATO. All right. So I'm going to put this on. This right here is GDP per capita, similar type chart. Okay, got now I'm going up to 2025 because the IMF is a little bit more up to date than World Bank, and at least, of course, it's IMF provides estimates as well. It's the latest estimates for 2025. Can't say for sure it's going to be that way. The countries that I have on this chart are all the countries in the world that spend at least $5 billion on defense per year or are in NATO. Okay, so it's a kind of an important caveat because even the Baltics, not all of them make $5 billion a year in payment, or I should say in military expenditure, but we are in NATO. So it's kind of an interesting list. You can peruse it here. Monaco as well, I could have put on there, but I didn't because it's not, it's protectorate, part of France, and this is kind of a NATO thing. So it's different from the prior chart that I just showed. Here we have 1995 GDP. Okay. Let's find Russia. One slot above Latvia. All right, $2,263 per person. 1995, Latvia, 2,163. All right, so one slot ahead of us. 2 slots ahead of Lithuania. And the rest of the world average 1,686. So again, just a couple slots above the rest of the world average here. Not world, but rest of world. The world is up here, way ahead of Russia in 1995. It's the great Soviet Union for you. Let's go to the improvement from 1995. Okay, so this is the delta. The wild one here is Japan. All right, this shows you the Japanese have been incredible at printing money since the 90s, since the Nikkei bust, with an aging population and rising costs. In dollar terms, they're actually lower than they were in 1995. It's an incredible stat. It's an incredible stat. Okay, so 1995, they were $44,000. All right, and now you whack off 8,600. Really, really an incredible stat for Japan. Taiwan right there. South Korea, United Kingdom, France. Look at non-U.S. NATO. There's an average there. It's interesting. Okay. United States up here, getting to our, 28,000 per person in 1995. Add another 60,000. There you get to your 80, 90,000. What is it? 89,000. Okay. Again, this is 2025 numbers when you add these purples in. Before that chart that I just showed you on Twitter, that was 2023. So it'd be slightly different numbers. Where's Russia? On this one, again, as you see, just slightly ahead of the world average. Okay. Second greatest army in the world. Very nice people. Highly respected people, as Donald Trump says. There's Russia. Let's look at the Baltics. Latvia. Really, really low. 1995 now. Mid 20,000s per capita. Lithuania, 30,000 per capita. And Estonia, over 30,000 per capita. Part of the Soviet Union. This is what markets do. This is what trade does. Never going back. Never going back to the Soviet Union. I can tell you that. We have Ukraine here because, again, remember, this list is the all the countries in the world that spend $5 billion or more on military. Okay, and that's a 2023 figure. SIPRI hasn't updated their database yet. I will tell you when they do. Here's Ukraine. Again, GDP per capita, low, $6,000 for Ukraine. Second greatest army in the world, has not been able to achieve their maximalist goals, or I should say his maximalist goals. That is the crank of Vladimir Putin, has not been able to take Ukraine in 3 years. Heroic, absolutely heroic what the Ukrainians have done. Okay, so let's take off now NATO. Let's just look at non-NATO. Not a huge list. Not a huge list. Shows you really how, if we were moving towards autocracy or every country being able to defend itself, you would expect this list to be pretty huge. It's not. Just a handful of countries. Interestingly, China, which we know is a great power now and a rising power, is in the middle of this list if we go per capita, and a huge improvement from 1995, but 1 billion people plus. See how low India is? Something to keep in mind. Pakistan's even lower, but a nuclear power right there. Russia, of course, a nuclear power as well. Second greatest army in the world. That's what they tell us. We have Switzerland, Singapore, these sort of neutral / friendly countries to the U.S. Israel as well. 55,000 or so when you add both of these bars together. Japan, really incredible. Still, if you just look at this, this is not changing. Okay. Japan continues to inflate the yen. Yen falls relative, not a ton, but over the long term, it falls against the dollar. And they just continue to, you can say in real terms, because in real terms, it's looking at the dollars. I know a lot of people don't think the dollar's a great currency. It's still the best looking horse in the glue factory. Japan, a stagnant power. So the question is going to be, once peace has been achieved in Ukraine, and if Trump can achieve peace at any cost, which is the route that he's going at with a ceasefire, how will these friendly nations who share intelligence with the great Tulsi Gabbard now, how will they react? Will they do more what Europe is doing, spend more, which everybody should admit that is something that Trump has gotten Europe to do, is spend more. Of course, Eastern Europe has always been spending more. We've always been warning of the threat to the East, but the question is Western Europe. And I'll get to that. I'll get to the paradox here of why Russia is just such a mediocre, backwards, poor people relative to the rest of the world, but still remains a great threat. Okay, so point is, Ukraine, at the lower end of this list, Russia, the great power, should be welcomed back into the G8, according to some people. Not even at the top of this list of non-NATO countries. And if you look at NATO, all right, you got former Soviet countries here, right in the middle. Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. You got Eastern Bloc countries, Slovakia, Hungary. Hungary is, of course, a big stealer of European Union funds while denigrating the Union. There's going to be some things to play out there in the next couple of years for sure. Put it all together. These are, again, world economies that spend at least $5 billion per year on their militaries or are in NATO. It's just this list. All right. And again, Russia on the bottom, certainly the bottom 50% and even lower. Okay. 30th, 40th percentile. One more thing about the improvements. Okay, so this is the rank. All right. It's not 61 countries because I have the world, I have rest of the world, and I have non-US NATO, so it's 58 countries is the data set, and a few other things. I should have put those in black, the grouped ones, but nonetheless. So here's the rank. And then this is the improvement. Okay, now improvement is not necessarily good or bad, but it's just to show you again some changes of what I just described. Okay, so Japan, just incredible. 20 slots down. Okay, from where they were in 2025. This is the rank in real terms, in GDP per capita, right? This is the rank. And this is just the change. Okay, the change in rank, we should say. All right, 20 slots down for Japan compared to 1995 or the last 30 years. Just incredible. Even Germany down. Australia up, Singapore up, Iceland up, and Iceland is a free rider. Let's see what Donald Trump does with Iceland. Iceland is a completely free rider. They don't even have a military, basically. They have a coast guard. They don't contribute to, let's say, that 2% threshold. It's the one island nation that Donald Trump hasn't threatened yet. Remember, Iceland was occupied by the British in World War II, so the Nazis would not. Let's see if the rhetoric changes around Iceland. But here we have, again, really want to draw your attention to my part of the world. Estonia, 16 slots up in the last 30 years. Lithuania, 18 slots up. Latvia, 13 slots up. Slovakia, 7. Hungary, 3. They can just leave the Union or NATO if they want. Romania, another one that is very much fighting for their freedom. They know with the struggles of their Moldovan brothers, it's the same people, same language. What's happening and has been happening over 30 years in Transnistria. Romanians are key to the eastern flank of NATO. And then let's find Mother Russia here. Why did I just lose it? Should have. There it is. 3 slots up. Second greatest army in the world. Sputnik moment. Remember, we were going to witness a Sputnik moment. If you had listened to the likes of Scott Ritter, Clint Ehrlich, Scott Horton, and Tucker Carlson every day tells us it's a Sputnik moment. Russia with the great architecture. That's what we're dealing with. Ukraine even. Whoops, wait. 1 slot ahead. They improved a little bit better than Russia. Okay, they improved 4 slots in this list compared to Russia. Okay, so again, just to show you what markets can do. If you look at people that care about trade, care about their security, former Soviet communist occupied countries, once they're allowed to trade and let into the free world, good things can happen. And the Ruski Mir, all right, well, 1 in 5 people don't have a toilet. So keep that in mind. All right, here now again, just showing just one more time the list. Okay, this is the rank in dollar terms. Okay, and this is the improvement in dollar terms, not ranked by improvement, ranked by 2025. And again, second greatest army in the world, improved $12,800 per capita in the last 30 years. Latvia improved $23,500. Lithuania improved $28,700. Estonia, $30,000 per capita improvement. Just something remarkable for Japan. They have been printing money before the world knew how to print money. But this is a military sort of arrangement here. All right, 58 countries. The only countries in the world that spend $5 billion and more on their military, plus and or are in NATO. Because again, Iceland sitting really well. $63,000 per capita improvement since 1995, and their military budget is, they have a Coast Guard budget. So let's see how old Trump treats them. All right, here's another map, or a map, I should say, on this one. Also important to look at these things in bubbles. Of course, Europe looks very rich here, and it is, because I have so many different countries that have around, if not higher, the GDP per capita of the United States. Of course, if I did this for every state in the United States, you would have a bunch of red bubbles look just like Europe. This is just a function of this map. It's hard to draw this stuff out. Europe is a rich place. Certainly shameful that Western Europe hasn't taken care of their security, and certainly has been free riding on American security. Anybody in Eastern Europe would tell you that. But this just remains a wild thing. Talk about the multipolar world. This is GDP per capita. This is not military spend. GDP per capita. All right, you got Middle East is rising fast here, and remember, if you do military spend, you got Saudi Arabia and of course Israel that are way, way high up on this list per capita. Singapore, occupied by the Japanese in World War II. We thought we were over these days. Perhaps we're not. Here's China. Again, this is interesting, I think. It's not the whole story. But if you look at this dot with China, 13,000 per capita. Oops, sorry. Ignore the B. I didn't correct that on the chart. The B is wrong. The B in the tooltip. It's just per capita. This is a different chart. So 13,800 per capita. Russia, 15,077 per capita. Very similar. And yet these are two great powers in the world. Clearly everybody knows China is actually, producing things. Russia is a gas station that terrorizes its neighbors. But, per capita, it's smaller than South Korea, smaller than Taiwan. It's not the whole story, but it is interesting, nonetheless, that, that you see that. I'm sure people have seen the images of these barges, invasion barges that have made their way across the internet recently for China potentially invading Taiwan. Go ahead and find that. But this is, I hope that the point of showing this map is to show our European friends that certainly we are rich enough to defend ourselves. Nobody should be disillusioned that we're not. We don't need the United States to defend us. But we have this belligerent neighbor that we need to deal with, and to show you where I think, the paradox here. No matter what happens with this peace deal with Ukraine, this ceasefire with Ukraine over the next month, if it's broken or it's not, and I do think it's more probable than not that it could be broken. I'm not sure about that. But if you had to say, and even if they strike an agreement, a 30-day ceasefire, if knowing Russia, I would say it's more probable than not that they break it, as Zelensky told Trump in the White House a couple weeks ago. At least 25 ceasefires where Putin has signed the dotted line and broken it. But we'll see. Point is, the toughest thing for Ukraine and for Europe remains this right here. Europe, as rich as it is, and maybe as finally awake as it is now for being asleep for 30 years since the fall of the Soviet Union, is extremely fragmented. It has always been. It's a dog-eat-dog environment. It has always been. The European Union was a peace project. Certainly was not a project to hurt the United States, as someone has said many times. But even though we have the supposed second greatest army in the world at our doorstep, it is a big army. And even though Russia is in the lower quantiles, certainly below 40% of military nations as far as GDP per capita, they have a large army. They do have the capability under a single command structure to mobilize a large army. So this remains the risk for Europe. And if and after the dust settles with Ukraine, with Georgia, and with Moldova, which is actively being targeted by Russian terrorists at the moment, they will come after these three nations right here: Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, where yours truly resides. American Latvian here. Right there in Latvia. Not too big. And though we pay more than anyone in Europe per capita or per GDP, military expense per GDP, other than Poland, we are extremely small. So a treaty, an alliance, collective defense arrangement is extremely important for us to not backslide 30 years to some place like where the Ruski Mir wants to take us. Ukraine literally is, it's one of the largest armies in the world. I believe it's the sixth largest army. I could find that list for you. This is the sixth largest army right here. And as we know, Russia's not going to take over all of Ukraine. But if they keep chipping away, and if there is not strong deterrence, strong defense against this bully that is Russia, the sixth largest army eventually, if things don't stay strong, and I'm not saying we're on that path right now, but if not, the great threat would be, of course, that Ukraine would eventually, through subversion, through hybrid warfare, through all the things that Russia does, falls back into this Ruski Mir, as they say, the Russian world, and then goes further to Europe. So nothing's changed over the last 300 years, at least from the perspective of this second greatest army in the world, where 1 in 5 people don't have a toilet. This is the landscape. Okay, it's a nation of terror, a nation of oppression, no civil rights. I should remind people who think that Russia is a standard bearer of Christian values that domestic violence is legal in this country. All right. Certainly, if it's just one infraction a year, it's legal. Okay, look it up. It's legal. Very tenuous child pornography laws as well. Look it up. Not exactly a standard bearer of Christian democratic values, but that is the narrative that you will hear from Tucker Carlson. And this remains a threat. So we're going to see. We're going to see how much Putin can jack around Donald Trump during this supposed negotiation for the interests of Ukraine and a just and lasting and enduring peace, as they say. We'll see. But I will keep pointing out on this channel the economic realities in Russia and in Ukraine and in Europe. So let's hope for better days. And that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.